I guarantee you, 100%, there's a group of people listening to this right now saying, oh, Andreessen's a shill, Rogan's shilling for flock, this is what they're doing, they're trying to get the mass surveillance. This idea that it's easy to become a billionaire and that these billionaires somehow or another are the problem because they're not paying their fair share is so weird that's a narrative that actually gets pushed through.
Joe Rogan basically spent 3 hours pitching surveillance drones to his own audience, and he barely even tried to make it look subtle. That is the real takeaway from the Mark Andreessen episode. A billionaire pulled up, pushed the company he is tied to, and Joe nodded along like it was a sponsored segment that forgot the disclosure. At this point, the new version of the show is way too easy to read. Tech billionaires get treated like misunderstood heroes, mass surveillance gets dressed up as public safety, and anyone side-eyeing it gets painted as lazy, jealous, or bitter. That is the vibe now, and week by week, it is getting harder to ignore. And if you missed it, Joe also used the final stretch of that same episode to cool down the Theo Von situation. That drama is a whole separate beast and deserves its own breakdown because there is a lot under the surface.
Yeah, they make more money than everybody else, right? You could do that too. It's like this is one of the things that America is really good at. You really can just work 20 hours a day and achieve something spectacular. Yeah. This is a narrative that gets pushed along democratic socialists that no one achieves substantial wealth without somehow or another victimizing other people.
Yeah. And then Jeff Bezos is the obvious counterexample, which is like every time you do the one click and the thing gets delivered to you 2 hours later at the cheapest possible price, saving you and your family a lot of time and money.
But before getting into that mess, people online were already calling out how tone-deaf this episode felt from the jump. For weeks, Joe kept shutting Theo down whenever Theo brought up billionaires influencing politics, AI surveillance, tech companies collecting private data, or powerful people moving behind the scenes. Then somehow, Joe's next move was to invite the exact type of billionaire Theo had been warning about. You cannot make that timing look normal. And the wildest part is, Joe does not even seem worried about how obvious it looks anymore. The AI surveillance talk started before the intro music was even done, no exaggeration. Right out of the gate, they were already discussing how Austin supposedly needs AI-powered surveillance drones to fight crime across the city. And shocker, the company behind the tech they were praising just happens to be tied right back to Mark Andreessen through his investments. You seriously cannot make this stuff up. For anyone who doesn't know Mark Andreessen, he helped create Netscape back in the early internet days of the 1990s. After making a massive bag, he co-founded Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most powerful venture capital firms in tech. The firm reportedly controls over $100 billion in assets, and its investments touch Meta, Coinbase, AI startups, crypto projects, and basically half the tech world right now. Mark himself is worth billions, and one company in that investment orbit is Flock Safety, a surveillance company. That is the same company getting a heavy spotlight during the episode.
These Amazon warehouse guys are like fucking dying in the warehouse.
Are they?
Well, I mean, they talk about these work conditions that are sometimes deplorable, right? And then you have the people at the top with like hundreds of billions of dollars.
Spread it around.
Spread it around a little bit, yeah.
Spread it around.
Seems like
probably
you could.
Better for everybody if you spread it around. Maybe people wouldn't hate you.
So what does Flock actually do? It uses AI surveillance systems with traffic cameras, license plate readers, drones, and other monitoring tools to track vehicles and activity in real time across American cities. And this is not some far-off sci-fi idea, because the technology is already being rolled out in different places across the country. That is exactly why so many viewers were side-eyeing the conversation from the start. What made people even more suspicious was the timing. There had just been a crime spree over the previous weekend, and suddenly Mark is on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about how technology connected to his investment world could supposedly help stop crime before it happens. Viewers started wondering out loud if Mark wanted to appear right after those events so the pitch would land while the story was fresh.
Just talking about this wild crime spree that happened this weekend in Austin. So it seems like was it teenagers that were doing this? Yeah? You're not on the microphone there, fella.
15 and 17 years old.
15 and 17 years old.
That's terrible.
What was the purpose? Just going crazy?
I think so, yeah. They stole cars and stole guns and switched cars.
And they shot at like 10 different locations.
At least one person's in critical condition.
Yeah.
They shot multiple people.
Honestly, at this point, that would not shock anybody. Joe just sits there nodding along while a billionaire appears to get free advertising for a surveillance company in front of millions of listeners. That dynamic is exactly what rubbed so many viewers the wrong way, especially after all the heat Rogan has already taken lately for defending billionaires, politicians, and powerful tech people who roll onto his show. Out of everyone he could have invited, he picked a billionaire tied to AI surveillance drones, then let him spend the opening stretch selling why mass surveillance is supposedly good for everybody. Even when Joe lightly brings up privacy concerns or the risk of powerful people abusing the system, Mark quickly brushes it off like it is nothing serious, and Joe barely pushes back at all. If anything, he helps make the criticism sound softer in real time.
They had flock cameras in Austin,
Yep.
but then they shut those cameras off for political reasons.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So please explain that.
Yeah, so these guys are driving around in cars, and yeah, they're switching cars, whatever. These guys running around. So there's a system called Flock, which is one of our companies, and what they do is kind of like in the movies. You take all the municipal cameras and traffic cameras and everything, and you feed them into an AI, and the AI is able to first find a license plate. And so this thing is deployed. It's sold to city governments. It's used all over the country. It solves crimes every day. We get reports on carjackings with kids in the back seat, and their lives get saved because they track them down. So a lot of towns and cities have this, and they love it. In cities like Austin, with the intense politics, they run into backlash on privacy and surveillance concerns. And so Austin had Flock and then turned it off.
Viewers were watching like, are you actually serious right now? Because let's be real, most people are not losing sleep over one random shady official sneaking a look at data for personal reasons. That is not even close to the main fear when mass surveillance systems keep getting bigger. The real concern is how huge amounts of personal data can be collected, stored, linked together, and later used against regular people in situations unrelated to why the data was gathered. That is the part that makes people uneasy. And the messy truth is, most people already hand over wild amounts of personal info every day without even thinking about it. Your phone location, texts, dash cams, traffic cameras, social media, search history, online orders, private messages, security cameras, and app permissions you clicked without reading. All of it builds a digital paper trail of your life sitting in databases, and a lot of that information can already be subpoenaed and used in court if authorities decide they want access. Now imagine adding AI-powered drones flying over cities, plus even more advanced surveillance systems collecting non-stop information on top of everything already out there. Then you have a billionaire making serious money from that kind of tech sitting there saying, "Don't worry, it's safe because we keep logs of who accesses the data." Yeah, okay buddy, that definitely makes everyone feel so much better. People online were roasting the whole conversation because it sounded like Joe was suddenly trying to pitch surveillance tech to his own audience. That is why so many viewers started calling him a sellout again after this episode.
Late breaking news today is these guys drove into some adjacent town, up against Austin, and Flock was live in that town, and so Flock tagged them the minute they drove into that town, and then they caught the guys. Subsequent to that, the mayor, your mayor in Austin, your mayor and your chief of police gave a press conference and said, "We really need to rethink this because it's crazy to have the ability to solve crimes and stop crimes."
Another reason people got annoyed was how the conversation kept sliding into culture war arguments instead of focusing on the bigger issue, which is corporations collecting and selling user data for massive profits. That is the real conversation that should happen on a platform this big. Major companies have been collecting user information for years and turning it into billion-dollar businesses. Social media platforms track behavior, study engagement, gather data, and profit from user activity every single day.
Concern is mass surveillance, right? And the concern is that someone's going to abuse this and use AI for nefarious purposes, right? Like what nefarious purposes would that be?
Yeah, so this is a system that could be used in bad ways. So if you had a corrupt, chief of police and, he had some personal entanglement thing and he wanted to track a, X whatever, or if you, the mayor, wanted to, do this to terrorize your political opponents or whatever.
Is there a blockchain for Flock so you could know who's doing what and how it's happening so someone couldn't abuse it? Is it possible to circumvent that?
Yeah, it could, but this is like the standard. Yes, and this, they log everything, and I'm sure there's records of everything. But look, it's like anything else. It's why cops have to get a warrant before they search somebody's house, right?
Right.
There's always the question of like, what is the legal authority and what are the safeguards that protect this?
Meanwhile, Joe and Mark push parts of the discussion towards racial profiling debates and whether cameras can be biased, while barely touching how giant corporations already profit from personal data at wild levels. And do not even start on AI systems scraping information from across the internet to train models, because that is a whole separate storm. The episode made people feel like Rogan is no longer able to properly challenge powerful tech billionaires. He gets too comfortable being friendly with them. Later in the episode, Joe openly defended billionaires and acted like every criticism of the ultra-rich mostly comes from jealous, lazy people who do not work hard enough. That part really set viewers off. Whether someone likes billionaires or not, acting like every concern about wealth concentration, corporate power, lobbying, or political influence comes from haters ignores why these conversations exist. Then came the part that had viewers rolling their eyes hard. Jamie finally pulled up numbers on how effective the surveillance tech actually is. But once those numbers looked weak, Joe jumped into defense mode for Mark Andreessen's company instead of sitting with what the stats showed.
There's an older system that's deployed in many cities called ShotSpotter.
What's it called?
It's called ShotSpotter.
ShotSpotter?
ShotSpotter.
ShotSpotter. Oh, ShotSpotter. Like spot someone shooting.
Spot somebody shooting. So ShotSpotter is an older system that works very well. It's deployed in many cities. And what it is, totally different system. What it is they put these precision microphones on top of rooftops all over the city. And then when a gunshot goes off, they're able to instantly triangulate that a gunshot has gone off and specifically where the gunshot went off. Chicago got so wrapped up on these political issues that they also, not only do they not have flock, they also turned off their ShotSpotter system voluntarily. And so people now get shot in Chicago and they bleed out on the street and nobody knows and nobody cares.
And what is the argument that they make?
That it is civil libertarian argument, which is all around surveillance and abuse and control and all these things. And like I say, I think that's a very legitimate argument. And then I would say there's like the woke argument, right, which is that the argument goes the American criminal justice system is clearly biased, that those will disproportionately affect disadvantaged people in society and disadvantaged groups, and so therefore.
That looked like classic confirmation bias. People online were asking why Joe even has Jamie fact-check anything if he's just gonna twist the information afterward to protect whatever story his guest is selling. One stat showed that around 88% of certain gunshot detection alerts ended with police finding no confirmed gun-related crime when they arrived. Instead of admitting the tech might not be as reliable as advertised, Joe jumped in with, well, that doesn't mean gunshots didn't happen. But that is exactly the point people were making. These systems are being sold as accurate tools for crime prevention and reliable detection. If officers keep responding to alerts and finding nothing on scene nearly 90% of the time, of course people will question whether spreading this technology everywhere is smart. But instead of digging in, the conversation drifted back to trusting the billionaire tied to the tech. That's what annoyed so many viewers as the episode played out. It stopped feeling like a real debate and started sounding like a polished PR interview for a billionaire in front of millions.
A good thing for everyone.
Chicago organizers managed to rid the city of ShotSpotter. Controversial police surveillance tech is often inaccurate, according to research that allowed activists to launch a fact-based campaign and a political model for organizers in other cities. Aha! So they're saying it's inaccurate. 88.72% of incidents flagged by ShotSpotter ended with police finding no incidents of gun crime. Okay.
But
right.
But that doesn't mean the gunshots didn't go off.
Exactly. That doesn't mean anything. Rarely produce evidence of a gun-related crime. That also doesn't mean anything, because it just shows that a gun...
Then, the second Mark Andreessen started talking like billionaires are under attack from regular people, Joe rushed in to defend them like his life depended on it. It was rough to watch. Joe acted like every billionaire is some heroic job creator carrying society on their back. What makes this whole thing even messier is that Joe had already been checked on this exact billionaire praise parade on his own podcast. A few months before Mark showed up, Tom Segura, of all people, pushed back while they were talking about wealth inequality and corporations stacking huge profits from working people.
From New York, and so New York has their own version of this now with their new mayor, and the big controversy there last week was their mayor did a video standing in front of somebody's home.
Yes.
Calling him out by name.
Ken Griffin. Who's a very wealthy guy who brings a lot of jobs to New York City and was in the middle of a huge project. That's a $6 billion project. And now he's considering tanking it.
It's Ken, who I know. Ken is a major philanthropist. Ken has donated hundreds of millions of dollars, particularly to healthcare in New York City, on top of being a major taxpayer and source of tax revenue, on top of being a major employer. And so the new mayor has deliberately targeted him personally to try to force him out.
Why?
Yeah.
The top 1% of New York, aren't they responsible for 50% of the tax base?
Yeah, on that order, yeah.
Something in the range
also
of
roughly
40
the
to
case in California in the year 2000, 1,000 individuals were 50% of the tax revenue. It was the all-time peak, but I think it's roughly 1% of the taxpayers are 50%.
That is why the internet started clowning the situation so hard. People were basically saying, if Tom Segura sounds more realistic about money and corporate power than Joe Rogan, then something is clearly flipped. Joe used to be the guy questioning powerful people, poking holes in big narratives, and staying suspicious of authority. Now, the moment a billionaire sits across from him, that energy seems to disappear. And the weirdest part is, Joe did not even shut Tom down back then. He actually seemed to hear him out, nodding along while Tom argued that money being spread more fairly could help more people. But then Mark Andreessen walks in with the opposite message, and Joe suddenly slides into a totally different lane. Viewers caught that switch immediately.
I mean, I'm not a businessman, although I kind of am.
You are.
I kind of am in some weird way. I've become a businessman.
Yeah.
But this idea that it's easy to become a billionaire and that these billionaires somehow or another are the problem because they're not paying their fair share is so weird that's a narrative that actually gets pushed through. Yeah, they make more money than everybody else. Right. You could do that too. It's like this is one of the things that America is really good at. Like this is a narrative that gets pushed along democratic socialists that no one achieves substantial wealth without somehow or another victimizing other people.
Yeah. And then Jeff Bezos is the obvious counterexample, which is like every time you do the one click and the thing gets delivered to you 2 hours later at the cheapest possible price, saving you and your family a lot of time and money.
But at the expense of small mom and pop stores, allegedly.
Although a lot of them sell on Amazon, a lot of small businesses sell on Amazon. Many European countries have a much more draconian, are much even more hostile to business, and the result is they are much poorer. Their slower growth are actually shrinking.
Then somehow, the episode got even more out of touch. Joe started talking like becoming a billionaire is just about grinding hard enough and working wild hours every day. That clip went everywhere because people could not believe he said it like that was normal life advice. Because to regular people, the whole work 20 hours a day and you will be a billionaire idea sounds completely disconnected from reality. The people truly running themselves into the ground are warehouse workers, truck drivers, delivery drivers, nurses, construction crews, restaurant staff, and millions of others trying to stay above water. Those are the people doing overtime, double shifts, and body-breaking work, not secretly building billion-dollar empires on the side. Mark Andreessen did not become a billionaire because he outworked every person alive. He got in early during the internet boom, co-founded a major tech company, cashed out big, then invested in other companies that later blew up. That is the part people feel Joe keeps glossing over. Money doesn't move the same once you already have a mountain of it. Your cash can sit in stocks, property, startups, and private deals and keep multiplying while you sleep. Ownership does the heavy lifting. That's not the same game as someone clocking in every day just to keep rent paid. And to be clear, that does not mean every billionaire is some villain or that building a company is automatically dirty. People understand that business, risk, and innovation matter. But when billionaires get painted like perfect heroes and every critic gets treated like a broke hater, the conversation turns insulting fast, especially from Joe Rogan.
So weird when you think about what happens on the corporate level, that there's these corporations that make like hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're like, yeah, they didn't pay tax on this because they're this corporation, and then not pay tax on it. And you're like,
well, supposedly that's what Jeffrey Epstein did for people. He
found those tax
loopholes. He helped people with tax loopholes, and
it exists for a reason, right?
Scumbags.
Yeah.
They've all put it in place. And then there's that thing where like, no one should be a billionaire. Well, okay, hang on. Do you like having a fucking iPhone?
Yeah.
Somebody had to make that. They're working 16 hours a day. You don't want to be Tim Cook. You don't want to be Steve Jobs. Guy died young because of it.
But I guess the argument that some people make against that is not that that guy shouldn't be wealthy. It's that when they have this overabundance of wealth and that the people that also work there, like these Amazon warehouse guys are like fucking dying in the warehouse.
Are they?
Well, I mean, they talk about these work conditions that are sometimes deplorable, right? And then you have the people at the top with like hundreds of billions of dollars.
Because this is the same Joe who made people love him by sounding normal, suspicious of power, and willing to press anyone at the table. Old fans remember that version, so watching him now sit across from tech investors, soften their talking points, defend the ultra-rich, and act like regular people are weird for questioning surveillance or corporate influence feels like a full switch. That is why longtime viewers keep saying Rogan does not feel like the same guy anymore. The problem is not that billionaires come on the show. Big podcasts interview powerful people all the time. The problem is that the old pushback barely shows up now, and people can feel that missing edge. Years ago, Joe built his whole lane by pressing people with power. He would question officials, challenge guests to their face, poke at shaky narratives, and openly distrust big institutions. But now, a lot of viewers feel like he has gotten way too comfortable around billionaire circles and elite tech players. That is why critics say he went from sounding like a voice for regular people to sounding like a shield for rich tech insiders. And maybe the biggest takeaway from this whole mess is not even Mark Andreessen himself. It is how a show built on questioning power can slowly turn into a loudspeaker for that same power without people noticing right away. The podcast did not flip in one single episode. It shifted little by little, one guest at a time, one softer defense at a time, one billionaire-friendly conversation after another. And by the time longtime fans looked around and realized the old version was gone, the new version had already taken over. Same mic, same host, same loyal audience clicking every week out of habit, but the energy underneath feels completely different now. So, thank you for watching. Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Joe Rogan can ever go back to the version that made people trust the show, or is this direction locked in now? Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.